Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
By the way, all of our guests today are brought to you by the Waddling Dog Pub, and that includes the patient Iain MacIntyre from Sportsnet. Iain, thanks so much for doing this, sir. How are you?
Well, I'm doing well. It's nice to be on, and I'm going to ask you a question, Donnie, that has plagued me my entire life. I have not been able to sleep since you first uttered it about 30 years ago. Why is the peanut butter on the top shelf?
So the kids can't get to it. Can't get to it. It's like a treat.
That's how you grew up so svelte and healthy.
Yeah. Oh, the peanut butter part was true. The svelte and healthy part, not so much. 5-4 Canucks in overtime. I know there's a lot of people, Tankus, and I may be one of them. Not all that happy with Canuck victories these days. A lot of impressive performances, Iain. But you made it clear on Twitter last night you were especially impressed by Quinn Hughes.
Yeah, I thought this was. I mean, it's always hard to say what a guy's best game is, right? Because this team has played so few meaningful games, and he was fantastic. Quinn was in the bubble in Edmonton 3 years ago now. Man, time is passing. But I thought last night he was just on another level than everybody else. Really, a game in which the Canucks were that badly outplayed. Natural stat trick had the high danger chances, 18-3 at 5-on-5. But when Quinn Hughes was on the ice, they outshot the Stars 10-6 and outscored them 4-0 at even strength. And then you have 6 shots on net. You have the 3 assists. The 2 great stretch passes, and the spinorama to set up Beauvillier. I thought it was just a monster game by him, and I'm saddened. And I know we don't want to go off in a tangent because we don't have much time, but I'm saddened at what the NHL 3 stars has become, because Quinn Hughes was not selected a star in that game.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. Usually they're picked 10 minutes before the end of regulation. What do you think? And this is an obvious question, but he stops 34 of 38 shots. His first game since December 1st. What do you think that game meant to Thatcher Demko and the organization?
Well, I've discovered this season that it's harder to find a human being who seems happier than Andrei Kuzmenko. But I think Thatcher Demko was probably the happiest guy in the locker room, and not just because he finally got to play after being out 3 months, the longest worst injury of his career, but plays well and helps them steal a game. Gets a win, and early in the year, when his form was off and the Canucks were terrible, having a crappy save percentage is one thing, and knowing that you can play better. But when you're losing games, it just compounds things. And last night, I think Demko probably would have been satisfied to get through the game without, any kind of physical problems after being out so long with that groin pull. But to have a game like that and to win it, I think is a huge boost for him. He had talked about how there's as much mental baggage or a mental scar as physical scar to get through on this. That would do a lot of healing mentally, that game last night.
Iain, let's talk about the big deadline Friday. So many names out there. Schen's out there, Besser, now Miller's popping up again, Demko, his name's popped up. What do you see the Canucks doing before Friday?
Well, I think they'll trade Luke Schenn, but beyond that, I think Besser is the guy that they've been trying the hardest to move. Yes. But just with his contract, it's such a drag on trade talks. And so any Besser deal, the Canucks are going to have to take back some money, and it may not be appealing money to everybody. I know that they're not anxious to retain salary. It defeats the purpose that Alvin and Rutherford have stated so many times about creating cap flexibility. So I still think that one's going to be a difficult one to close. But I think basically with Alvin, they'll listen to everything. I don't think, as much as Thatcher Demko's name has been out there, I don't think this organization is trying to trade their franchise goalie. But they're in a position, 27th place. It's been forever since they had any success. They have to. Their due diligence is to listen to everything that's pitched to them. I do think, and I don't know if you would agree, Dolly, but I do think that the Miller stuff is a little bit overblown. And I think there's been some discussions. I'm not saying he can't get traded, but just looking at this situation logically, last year when there was so much conjecture just before the deadline about JT Miller, and he had 1 year left on a bargain contract, he was in the middle of a 99-point season. He was absolutely at the height of his powers as a center in the NHL. And all that conjecture and all those rumors and trade stories, in the end, the Canucks didn't get a whole lot of serious offers on JT Miller. Now that he's signed a 7-year, $56 million extension, I can't see that makes him more appealing. So I think a lot of the discussions, any that the Canucks have had involving Miller, it's probably a degree of tire kicking by the other team and seeing, what the Canucks would do about that contract. So I just think that's going to be a really hard one to move. And the fact is, JT Miller is still an impact player for this team. As criticized as he's been, he's still going to finish with 30 goals and 70 points, and he does so many things. It's not a great contract. None of these 7-8-year-old deals for guys who are going to be in their 30s generally turn out well, but he's still going to be worth every cent for the next few years. And I don't think the Canucks are just going to give him away and take on some salary retention pain to do that. Maybe there'll be a huge blockbuster, but right now I don't see it.
Yep, I'm with you on that one, Ian. Ian, since Tocchet took over, are you seeing an identity? We always talk about a team's identity. Look, these guys are working hard right now, Ian, and every time they're down by a goal or two, they come back. So are you seeing under Tocchet what kind of changes and a team identity?
I am actually, but to be fair to Bruce Boudreau, they came back in a lot of games as well, just because of the offensive firepower that they have. But I'm seeing something more. There's a little more substance in the way this team has hung in some games and is playing some games. And even say, let's go back to Saturday. I mean, last night we're all honest that the Canucks stole that game in Dallas, but. You go back to Saturday and how competitive they were against a Bruins team down 2-0. It looked like maybe they're going to get blown out. They get it to 2-1 and they have their goalie out at the end. And look at their defense in that game. Ethan Bear goes out. They've got Willanen and Brisebois up from the minors. They've got Kyle Burrows playing 24 minutes, and Burrows has been a healthy scratch more times than he's played this season. And yet they were competitive. There was nothing fluky or fortuitous that they were still in that game. And I attribute that to the structure. I know people are tired of hearing about structure and culture, but the team is so much stronger positionally now. And I think it's because Tocchet, in a fairly short time, he's only a month in, has established some standards that players understand they have to meet, or they're not going to play. And look at Kuzmenko. It was only a few games ago he was playing 10 minutes. Look at him now. 22 minutes the other night. Great again last night, and just has been a different player since he came back because he understands he has to be if he wants to play the amount of minutes that he's now getting. I think all guys realize that, and that standard. It's not going to get them into the playoffs or anywhere close this year. It might hurt their draft pick. It probably will hurt their draft odds a little bit between now and the end of the season, but it's a great thing to establish going into next year.
And very quickly, Ian, Vitaly Kravtsov, wearing number 91, makes his Canuck debut. 8 minutes, 53 seconds worth of ice time. I know he didn't get a lot of ice time in the second period because of penalties. Just your opinion of his first go-round with the Canucks.
Yeah, well, I didn't get enough of a read on him on last night. I haven't had enough of a read on Aatu Räty yet, but I think it's a low-risk, high-reward gamble that really costs the Canucks nothing, and it fits the profile of what they're trying to do in getting, early 20-something guys who maybe have not flourished on their ELCs, and with some development and support, get them to another level. I know Ratu's a little bit different. He's younger than Kravtsov, but I like the idea that they're going out and getting high pedigree guys and seeing what they can do with them. The organization needs bodies. It needs everything. It needs talent, but it also just needs volume. It needs more guys between the ages of, say, 18 and 25 who might turn into NHL players. They need to improve their odds with volume. And I think that's what they've done with a couple of these trades. And maybe they'll add another player or two like that before Friday.
I'm not sure if the peanut butter was there, but that interview, this hit was top shelf.
Top shelf.
Thanks so
Thanks,
much,
guys.
Ian. Appreciate it.
You guys are top shelf too.
Oh,
I'll come
so
on
much.
anytime you ask. See ya.
Oh,
Okay. We'll get him on next week. Thanks, Ian. Appreciate it.